Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to today's webinar, Get the Inside Story on MongoDB BI Connectors, hosted by Progress. This is Cindy Romig, and I'll be your host for today's event. Before we begin, some information about the Citrix interface. When you joined the webinar, by default, you saw the audio bridge was connected to your device over the Voice over IP option. If you prefer to listen to using your phone, just select the telephone option and the automated operator will walk you through those steps. We'll hold question and answers after the presentation. To submit questions, just enter them in the questions window on the right-hand side of your window. And if we happen to run out of time and your question isn't answered, we'll definitely send those questions and answers out afterwards. We definitely encourage you to submit questions throughout the webinar. If for any reason you happen to experience technical issues, just please send a message over to me and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. So we have two very distinguished speakers joining us for our event today. Sumit Sukkar, Chief Data Evangelist for Progress Data Direct, and Jean Arnold, Senior Sales Engineer with TIBCO Jaspersoft. Sumit is one of the top industry experts on on open data standards connectivity with disruptive data sources. Sumit has been working in the data connectivity field for more than 10 years. His interests include business intelligence and data integration for SaaS apps with a focus on standards such as ODBC, JDBC, ADO.NET, and OData. He's presented related sessions at both Dreamforce, Oracle OpenWorld, and many more. Jean is currently a senior sales consultant for TIBCO, working within the Jaspersoft division. He has over 20 years of experience in many areas of the computer industry. Most recently, he's been solely focusing on BI and best practices of how to embed BI inside of existing apps. Understanding how users work with BI tools and ways to make the process more enjoyable and successful are some of his specialties. You can find Jean working from his home office or flying in the airport and working on his next speaking engagement. So, with that, I would like to introduce Sumit. It's my pleasure to start the webinar.
Thank you, Cindy. All right, so let's get started. On the agenda for today, we're going to talk about what to consider for business intelligence with MongoDB. We'll talk about when to utilize the new BI connector from MongoDB versus the Progress Data Direct BI connectors. And then we'll finish off with how TIBCO Jaspersoft, Jean's going to walk us through a demo and what they chose for their MongoDB connectivity from their embedded BI platform. So we'll finish that off with Jean. And then I always like to start off webinars with a bad joke, or maybe it's a funny joke. But 3 DBAs walk into a NoSQL bar. A little while later, they walked out because they couldn't find a table. I think the audio is off because I think everybody should die laughing right now. No? Maybe? All right. Nobody dropped off, right? Okay. All right. So let's start off with what to consider for BI with MongoDB. So if you're new to MongoDB, it's an open source document database. It's a NoSQL database, which is really, it's not designed to use SQL. It's built for scalability and developer flexibility and productivity in mind. So the data will be stored in JSON documents or JSON-like documents in MongoDB. And JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. There's an example there below in the screenshot. Data is in name value pairs separated by commas. Curly braces hold objects, and the square ones hold arrays. That's a quick overview of what MongoDB is. It's definitely not a SQL database. So why do we even need a BI connector for MongoDB? Well, again, MongoDB is not necessarily designed for SQL type of applications. It's a NoSQL database with its own benefits. But the BI ecosystem really expects SQL. So that's where these BI connectors we'll talk about from both MongoDB and Progress Data Direct today will come from. So then the MongoDB also, when you think about what the data looks like, is semi-structured. You can have nested and embedded documents and arrays. So it's not necessarily equivalent in the relational data model, which expects a very structured schema. And then MongoDB, it has limited support for SQL joins across different collections. So those are very common business intelligence operations. They want to join different objects and tables or collections in this case for MongoDB. So these are some of the reasons that are driving BI. And I think as you see more, the organizations are adopting Mongo for operational databases. So I think it's a good sign that you're seeing this demand. When we survey our user base, we see a lot of, when we think about the things people are storing in MongoDB when they require BI connectivity, you can see that a large number of our base, they're using nested arrays and some embedded documents. So there's definitely people's workloads and documents are definitely somewhat, we'll say, complex data types. They're not all flat documents. And then when you think about, what's the degree of complexity, these are levels of nesting. So you might have embedded documents or arrays, and within each of those, these are different levels. And you can see there's a lot of, the majority of these are going to be pretty, somewhat more semi-structured than structured when we store documents. So this is a good indicator from our user base. And what we like to say is, when you have requirements for BI connectivity, we think you're doing something right, because it's important enough to connect from this. I think that BI analytics space is like a $26 billion industry. So a lot of these tooling on the left, like business intelligence tools, data integration tools, they've been connecting over ODBC and JDBC to the different database landscapes over time. And now we're bringing MongoDB into that picture. And that's what we're really talking about today. And lots of use cases across lots of different applications. But just at a high level, we're seeing all kinds of neat use cases that vary. If we think about, some folks in financial services are using MongoDB to store network traffic coming in and out of their network, and they might want to run some reports on a SQL Server BI stack. Or maybe they've got like an IBM order management system. And they want to supplement some of the order details in MongoDB. So interesting that they can enhance SQL operational systems with MongoDB. We see lots of data discovery, visual analytics with tools like different data visualization tools, things like Tableau, Click, Spotfire. And then even folks want to build cubes and do their analytics and drill up and drill down into things with extracting data from MongoDB. So lots of use cases across the board, across all that ecosystem of BI. And then when we think about BI tools and we think about connectivity to something like MongoDB versus a relational database, again, MongoDB is not a relational database. So these are some of the considerations we can share with you from our experience to date. So we encourage BI professionals to run some stress tests on their BI servers and test different workloads, whether it's a report or analytics use case. And then we also recommend testing all the data types and fields you want to consume. There are some of the things you might have to do some configuration with data type sizes and other kind of massaging of those schemas. And then you also want to consider, with MongoDB, we'll talk about this in a little bit how it works, but when you generate a SQL schema on top of the NoSQL, you need to sample some of that data. So think about how much you want to sample and what that means. A lot of the MongoDB professionals, they have a good idea of what their data looks like, and they usually decide this the right value to make sure they're getting reliable data out of MongoDB. And then you also want to consider, there's a flexible data model. Data types can vary from row to row. There are different things you might want to consider against a relational database where a lot of that stuff is enforced at the database level. So with MongoDB, some of that is the developers can enforce that in their own code and application. So some of the differences at a very high level between consuming MongoDB versus a relational database for BI. The question we've been getting a lot lately with the introduction of MongoDB's BI Connector back in Q4 of 15, now the question from a lot of our customers and partners is, when do we use which? There's multiple options. So let's talk through some of that. And I want to thank Sheena Badani and Jason Ma from MongoDB for helping provide some context and helping with the slides here. This is the MongoDB BI Connector, or Connector for BI. It was released in Q4 last year. And what it does is it provides a BI tools, that infrastructure, with that relational schema. So you can connect those BI tools directly to MongoDB. The way it works is it translates SQL statements into MongoDB queries, and that are then sent to MongoDB to return the results. And those results are returned in a tabular format by this BI connector, and that allows the tools to actually connect and utilize that data out of the box. So this is this example there. I think some visualization tool on the left, looks like maybe it's Tableau. And how that really works is when we look at the location and flow of data, on the right side, let's start from right to left. On the right side, you've got MongoDB. You've got these JSON documents. And then the BI connector actually runs on it's a Linux server, and it's going to handle the mapping from the semi-structured JSON document into a relational table. And then once it exposes that table, you can then connect with a progressdriver to the BI connector from the analytics or visualization tool on the left. So that's kind of the high-level architecture. And to be clear, you heard Postgres, but MongoDB Connector doesn't store data in Postgres, so don't think about it that way. It's more of a data federation play. You query it, and it pulls it back from Mongo. And then we look at the Data Direct Mongo ODBC and JDBC drivers. These were released in Q1 of 2014, so that's where we got some of the experience I shared with you from working with customers and prospects trying to build out MongoDB BI connectivity. So we're really excited. MongoDB is all about giant ideas, and we had the giant idea to take MongoDB and actually normalize those documents and provide that relational view into it. Before that, the industry would just take the semi-structured data and just flatten it, and it was pretty difficult to work with when you got some of those complex documents. And we're the only connector certified by MongoDB, so we're really excited about that. In our latest drivers, we pick up the latest features that MongoDB introduces. And we visit their conference every year and sponsor it and try to keep up with those things. And we pick up stuff for Wired Tiger engine support, things new in the aggregation framework, and security features like SSL for our financial services customers. So it's good that we keep up with the latest technology and build them into our connector. And we support all the platforms that business intelligence applications are running on across Windows, Linux, AIX, Solaris, and even HP. So this is the overview of our connector. And when you compare it to what we do different than maybe the architecture-wise, our connector can reside fully in the application servers for your business intelligence tools, or even on the desktop. It's an ODBC or JDBC driver you would install on a server, and it then connects directly to MongoDB and handles all the normalization and querying over the wire. All right, here's just when we talk about normalization, what does that mean? So this is what it looks like with our driver in particular. And so you have a JSON document on the left, and you can see that you got user list at the top, and then below it looks like Fitbit data. There's when we take this data in MongoDB, we normalize this document to multiple tables. So you can see there's a steps table with the attributes at the top level, and then those embedded, we'll say embedded document of with hours and steps. We create a related table and create a relationship so that you can reliably get all the data out of that document through a BI tool. So it basically creates two tables as a relationship, and you can do a join your BI tool and get you can do sums and aggregates and get reliable answers out of that, which is really what those BI tools require to have any use out of this data. And when we look at actual case studies, we have lots of customers running this, but to get case studies takes some time. So we did get one with Killick. We're excited about that. They presented it with us at MongoDB conference in Europe. And what's interesting about their use case, it looks like a SQL Server shop. They have SQL Server BI requirements, and they have a CRM in SQL Server, and they adopted MongoDB for processing different workloads. And they were able to connect the two systems through our ODBC driver and build SQL Server or Microsoft BI on top of both SQL Server and MongoDB data side by side just by connecting through an ODBC driver with SQL Server link server. So we have a full case study on our site if you want to take a look at that. And then everyone's always interested in what real data looks like. So Killick was nice enough to share, what kind of data they have and what it looked like through the query interface. On the left, you see their document. Killick's not on the line, so I'm not really sure what this document means, but you can see that the different properties and name and value pairs and embedded documents can be returned from a single SQL query, right? You see on the right, they're querying the table where some data code equals some value, and you're able to get results out of that table. So it's a great end-to-end example from Killick. All right, and then we look at the MongoDB BI Connector, and we look at the two options you might have. So we talked about there's with MongoDB, it is according to DB Engine, the fourth most popular database in the ranking. So there are a lot of connectors out in the market, but to help you sort through some of that noise, we wanted to focus on the ones that are actually certified by MongoDB and that have like public customer references. So this will show some of the differences between the two to help you figure out which one works best for you. And you can see if we start, there's the supported versions. The MongoDB BI Connector is supported with MongoDB Enterprise Advanced 3.2, and the Progress Data Direct one supports the multiple versions. I see a typo on the word professional, but so we support all the different versions from 2.2 to 3.2, free, professional, Enterprise Advanced. Then we talk about known workloads. This just means what we've seen in production. We've seen some with the MongoDB BI Connector. We saw like some folks running Tableau and extracting to visualize data. With Progress, we have public references and partners. You'll hear from Jaspersoft in a moment, or MicroStrategy as well. Different BI platforms. We've seen use cases like visualization, connecting live from maybe more of the operational BI, more interactive data exploration, and then data federation cases like Killick. You can connect in real time and do some of that, supplementing your core systems with MongoDB. So we've seen lots of cool use cases. When we look at deployment footprint to your BI servers, the MongoDB Connector, you'll have on your desktop or server, you'll have some kind of Postgres driver, and then BI Connector needs to exist on a Linux server somewhere. The Progress one, you can install it on the BI application servers or desktops. So ours is just an ODBC or JDBC driver. And when you look at the interface, this is really about for software vendors, and if your application's already can connect to Postgres, you can connect to that MongoDB BI Connector out of the box if it's available. For Data Direct, we just connect directly to Mongo and provide an ANSI SQL interface. So you'll need our Mongo driver to connect. And then, again, fully embeddable just means that you can get all the pieces on your BI app server. So it's not applicable to Mongo's because theirs has that Linux server-side component. So you can't really fully embed it, but for the Progress drivers, it's fully embeddable in your app servers. You'll see Gene walk through that later with the demo. From a certification perspective, obviously Mongo certifies their own connector, and they certify our connector as well. And Data Direct also has we have a certification suite. We even test some of leading popular commercial applications in that suite as well. We run like 85 million tests on these things to make sure it works with BI applications. There's a kind of difference in certifications that we do on top of MongoDBs. And then, neither of these are open source. And when you look at client support, this is strictly talking about the ODBC or JDBC client. With MongoDB, there's a Postgres client, so you'll get help from the open source community. Data Direct's going to be the single driver, so you'll get the commercial support, and you'll get the TSA-net multi-vendor support if you need help with multiple applications. So that's a quick rundown head-to-head to help you, figure out the difference. I'll let you guys decide which one works better for you. You can download free trials of both. You can go to Progress's site, grab an ODBC or JDBC driver. You can go to Mongo's site and test drive the BI connector. And then you can grab some links from their documentation on there's a Tableau drivers link and the different open source drivers. All right, so now I'm going to attempt to transition this thing on the GoToMeeting and get it over to Gene to walk you through what they did with the BI connectivity from the Jaspersoft embedded BI platform. So, Gene, cross your fingers. Let's see if this works.
All right, we'll give it a whirl. And Sumit, can you hear me?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thanks for the introduction, and obviously thank you very much for having me here today. I'm excited to speak and show you how TIBCO Jaspersoft utilizes the Progress Data Direct driver to access Mongo data. So I have a small PowerPoint deck to explain how Jaspersoft fits into the whole embedded world, and I'm going to start that off for you right now. Just one more confirmation, Smith, that you can see the PowerPoint, please. All right, good deal. Perfect. Okay. So again, Gene Arnold from TIBCO Jaspersoft. I've got a small deck I'm going to show you just to give you an idea where Jaspersoft plays in the embedded idea. This will take us through a quick explanation. and then I'll follow this off with a demonstration of how everything actually works live. So here's really the most important takeaway that I just want to kind of have you think about. It really is so easy nowadays to collect data. We're talking enormous amounts of data. The last customer I talked to yesterday, they made it clear they had terabytes of data that they want to offer to their clients in a visual manner. Think about that, terabytes of data. So it's wonderful that you can collect data nowadays, and you can do it very easily. The tricky part is actually getting that data into the hands of your internal staff, your end users, whoever your customer may be, and getting the data to them in a timely manner, and most importantly, getting them the data when they're looking to make a decision. So if you take a look at this slide, the idea is basically this. You've got your customer, you have your analytics, and you have your applications. The problem is that what you're looking for is a final solution where your customer can have these analytics, get access to all that data in the application that they're in. They're not looking to alt-tab to another 3 or 4 applications to figure out how to get an answer to a question. The answer is in that data, and that data needs to be available easily to your end users. And that's what Jaspersoft does a very good job of. There are a number of opportunities why you would look into using an embedded BI solution. And let me just go through a couple of them real quick. Rather than trying to, let's just say, build it on your own, okay? And that's usually a question that I get a lot. Since Jaspersoft is an embedded BI solution, one of the questions that I'll get from a customer is, well, should we build or should we buy? And depending on your needs, I'll be quite honest, it could go either way. But when you start getting into some more detailed BI requests, you really do save your time and focus all your important time developing your application. Okay? During my calls, the customers pretty much say, you know what, we know we need BI, but we don't want to write it. It's not our specialty. Our specialty is X. Our specialty is Y, and that's what we want to work on. So let Jaspersoft help you with that. It also makes you a more competitive organization. Bottom line, your competition is either doing this or looking to do this, this meaning bringing in embedded BI into their application. And it's not a question of, is it a good idea anymore? No, that's already come and gone. It is a good idea. It's just up to you to decide how you want to move forward. And obviously, I'd certainly like you to look into Jaspersoft because it'll help you stay competitive. It'll reduce the time maintaining these homegrown tools that you're going to put together if you build on your own. Jaspersoft's been doing this for over 10 years. Okay, we've been through the fire. We've figured out the kinks. All right, we've done a very good job helping you create a very solid BI embedded solution. Let us take that on, and you just use the tool and embed it in your product. And finally, you will save capital. In the end, when you think about how much money and how much resource you have to throw towards actually building your own BI solution, it just doesn't really pay off when you can use Jaspersoft, and we already have it done. A quick little journey through Jaspersoft and Mongo. In the beginning in 2011, we have and we used a native Mongo driver. So bottom line, we would speak to Mongo. You were required to write Mongo-based queries. It really wasn't an end-user type of thing. You wouldn't just simply have them do ad hoc or query the data on their own with that interface. It was more designed for the report developer. Don't get me wrong, very effective, but not really user-friendly. What about ETL, 2012? Another great way to get access to the data, still a good way sometimes if you need to maybe blend that data with other external data sources, or simply the fact that you want to move the data off your Mongo database and put it into an analytical database and work against it there. But you do lose some of the live interaction. And obviously, Mongo is getting better and better with their aggregation framework. So it'd be nice to be able to utilize that. So then you can look into maybe 2013, the whole in-memory virtualization idea. Cool, bring all the data into memory, but as noted, it is kind of slow and hard to model the data. And the fact is, you're going to kind of lose out on the whole real-time type of angle because you have to move all the data into memory. All right, again, a usable model, but we're really happy to be in the 2015 area using the Progress Data Direct driver. Now Jaspersoft can have end users literally talk to Mongo directly. So that offers you dashboarding, that offers you access to a metadata model that you're going to see. You also get to create these schemas that help your end users just speak directly to Mongo and see a really nice layout of data and not have to figure out how to unwind arrays or traverse through a document. All cool things. I'm a huge Mongo fan, but an end user that's just looking to create a real quick table or a real quick report, that's not something that they want to do. So I'm happy to show you a demonstration of how Jaspersoft uses the Progress Data Direct driver. It uses that driver to actually get access to Mongo data in a very easy way. And let me click the escape button and show you how that works. So before we actually open up Jaspersoft, it's important for you to see what we're actually going to be speaking to. So right here, you'll see, and I'll scroll up just a little bit, a document. Obviously, if you're on this call, you certainly have an understanding of Mongo, right? So you're looking at a Mongo document. It's actually the data that we are talking to in this demonstration. Now, we've got a number of different items in here. Cool. Very easy to use. Mongo's documents are awesome. The way you can collect data and nest data. Again, big fan of Mongo. What's tricky, and as Sumit offered earlier, when it's coming to BI and when you want to get access to the data, things like these arrays, right, they get a little bit tricky, okay? Actually, they get a lot of bit tricky when you want to start talking to that. Now, if you're good with Mongo queries, you can easily write some Mongo queries and extract that data. But if you're in a BI world and you just want to drag and drop fields onto the screen, if you want to offer your Mongo database to your customers in an ad hoc type fashion, they're not going to understand how to unwind this data. I want to actually take us just real quick to these two here, Sector 1 and Sector 2, only because you're going to see this in the example. So bottom line, this is the document that we're speaking to today. I thought it'd be nice for you to understand what we're looking at. And I'll move this back over to the side and bring over Jaspersoft and actually talk to Mongo. Let's do it. We're going to log in. And we're going to move to my repository. And what I'd like to show you real quick are just two reports. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up these reports, the example, this report itself is not the takeaway here. The takeaway here is right now I am speaking to Mongo. I'm using the Progress Data Direct driver. I'm speaking directly to that driver from Jaspersoft, and I'm pulling back Mongo data. Now, I'm an end user. I just clicked on a report. Think of what I just did right now, and I'm a casual user. I clicked on a link, and I brought back the report. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're able to insulate our end users of by using these different tools. Another quick example. Here's one actually diving into that sector information. I'm actually breaking down the different sectors and pulling out their percentages. This is information inside of one of those arrays that I showed you. Pretty cool. So the actual schema, the actual tools within the progress driver helps organize all this data, links up all the different arrays, and presents it in a manner that Jaspersoft just speaks directly to, and the end users are completely insulated on how much is going on behind the scenes. So what is actually going on behind the scenes, and how is this whole thing working? Cool stuff over here. The progress driver offers us a schema. So what this schema does is it helps actually organize those arrays. It helps us create different structures behind the scenes to get access to all of that data. When that schema file is created, Jaspersoft uses it within inside of a JDBC data source. Notice, where's my Mongo database? Where's my schema file? This is all it takes, this in our schema file, to actually speak to Mongo. Okay? That's huge. Let me really explain to you how huge this is. I'm using basically a JDBC driver. Notice there's nothing in here around Mongo queries. I'm not doing anything special to speak in a Mongo manner. I'm using a JDBC driver, just like you would in your application. The schema file helps a lot by organizing all the data, and by way of this method, I'm able to send straight SQL queries to Mongo, and I'm going to actually show you an example of that. Now, Jaspersoft, one of the real cool things about the product is it allows you to create something called a domain. The domain is pretty much eye candy for the end user when it comes to data. And what it does is it allows the end user to see the data in a nice laid out manner. Here's some general bank information, and look at that. Here's that sector information, all broken out. Okay? I can take specific pieces of information that I want to use in my report. I can take chunks of information, or I can bring over the whole thing. But guess what I'm not doing? I'm not writing any queries. In fact, if you look at this interface, I don't even know that I'm bringing back data from Mongo. So the Jaspersoft interface helps the end user get to the data. Luckily, using the progress driver, we're able to get to the Mongo data just as easily as we could with any other database that we can connect to. And it's all transparent to the end user. So we'll click on OK. And we're brought to the ad hoc screen. I'm just going to create a quick table. So here are all those pieces of information from the document that you saw before. Now, I can rename things and organize it in any way that I'd like. But watch when I do this. I go and I take, let's just take the project name, and I drag it and I drop it onto the screen. All right, we'll stretch that out a little bit. Let's take a look at some numbers. Let's bring out maybe the total amount for their project, and we'll put it also up on the screen. And just for argument's sake, to show you some grouping, let's actually go and group this by the country short name. And to have a little bit more fun, let's right-click and create a filter, and we will only bring in just a couple countries over here. Doesn't matter who we pick, just want to put a couple on there, click on Apply. And now if you notice, if I go from sample data to full data, I have a table. What are my countries? These 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, I would love to follow this up at some point with you and give you a nice solid demo of Jaspersoft and how it can help your company, but that's not what this is about right now today. What this is about is the fact that I'm literally talking to Mongo right now, and I'm an end user dragging and dropping data onto the screen, and I'm using the Progress Data Direct driver to do that. Now, you want to see something really cool? Take a look at what I'm sending to the driver. See, Jaspersoft was designed to send out the queries via a JDBC driver. There's a number of other ways we can connect as well, but for this example, I want to take it in this direction. So what's huge is Jaspersoft didn't have to change the way it works. It uses the driver just like it would use any other JDBC driver. It sends the query to the driver just like it would send a query to any other JDBC driver. Now, the magic that happens behind the scenes, you'll have to talk to Progress about that because it's some pretty detailed stuff, and they do an amazing job, obviously, of that, because here's what I'm sending, and look at what I'm getting back, and you saw the document. Really cool stuff here. So by using this driver, my end users are able to get to Mongo data. By using this driver, I can even create some cool things like dashboards. So now I have a dashboard here, again, speaking to Mongo. It's interactive. I can click on different items over here. I can click on more information. And I can build this out in any way. I can use filters. I can do anything I want with this. I can do anything I want like I would normally do with any other JDBC connection to a database. This is a major help for TIBCO Jaspersoft. It now allows us to be competitive. Just like we mentioned earlier about why you would use Jaspersoft to be competitive and embed, Jaspersoft does not want to have to write these kind of drivers. This is not our specialty. We do a really good job when it comes to embedded BI. Arguably, I think probably one of the best in the market, but we don't write drivers. That's why we use Progress. Their data direct driver gets us competitive, and it's also going to help you do the same thing. At the end of the day, where we focus is around embedded BI. So here's a quick little example of a few reports embedded inside of an application. This is all using our visualize.js API. So you can take any of the reports that I built earlier. These are some reports that I have in an actual example, and I'm embedding them inside of an application very easily using Jaspersoft. This data could be coming from a Mongo database. And if it was, you'd be using the Progress Data Direct driver to do that. Okay? So as Cindy's been mentioning on the side over there, if you do have any questions, please post them into the chat. We'd be happy to make sure we answer those questions for you. I'm going to bring up the slide deck just real quick for you. And make sure I click the right buttons. Play from current slide. So if you'd like to learn more about Jaspersoft, I encourage you to go to www.jaspersoft.com. We have a weekly demo. I may be the person actually hosting it, or we have a number of other individuals that take care of that for you. So you might actually hear from me again. You can watch a webinar, obviously attend a live event, and download the trial. We've got a number of really successful customers utilizing these tools, so we can also talk to you about that. So please, hopefully we can follow this up and talk to you. And it really was a pleasure speaking today. And I think at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Smith.
Thank you, Gene. That was fantastic. Really exciting stuff. We'll transition to Q&A. I guess this is just a slide. You know, we talked about MongoDB today. That slide just shows a list of our data sources we support beyond MongoDB. But you know, with our thanks. So yes, we have a lot of wide coverage to help companies like Jaspersoft to consume all this disruptive data sources. MongoDB was an example today. So yeah, we'll go to the Q&A slide now and go through some of these questions. And so we'll keep them coming in. So let me read through some of these now. Gene, you can just keep it there. So Gene, let's start with the question you got during your demo. So the question is a Jaspersoft domain similar to a semantic layer?
It actually is a semantic layer. That's actually, if I ever get the pleasure of doing a demo for whoever asked that question, you'd literally hear me reference it like that. So you're right on par.
All right, great. And then I guess I should introduce. There's other people in the room here in the Progress Studio. We've got Brody Messmer and Phil Prudich and the R&D team. They're some of the brains and beauty behind the MongoDB Connector, relative beauty. And they're here to help answer some questions. So let me get some in here. All right, so this is a question if you guys can help answer. What's attendees asking? They'd like to know the volume of data. Now, I guess we should say in the context of BI, the volume of data we can access from MongoDB for BI. Like how much data can we pull?
Hi, this is Phil. We will push down as much as we can of the query processing to Mongo itself, particularly through the aggregation framework, which will most often be used for your BI tools. So the driver itself does not impose a limit on the number of rows, for example, that you could fetch back.
Okay, thank you. And then let's see. So here's a question: Is the MongoDB running on the Windows as well? I think that might have been during the demo. Gene, did you have MongoDB running on Windows?
No, I'm actually a Mac guy, but it could have been that way as well. I'm running everything on a Mac, but the demo would be identical. Luckily, both Mongo and Jaspersoft are compatible with multiple operating systems, so the same demo would look identical if it was being run by one of my buddies on a Windows machine.
Okay, all right. All right, here's another question. So when connecting to a Mongo server with a large amount of data, the ability to push the SQL operation down to the Mongo server is critical for reasonable performance. How do the push-down capabilities of the data direct connector compare to that of the MongoDB connector?
Hi, this is Phil again. So I'm not intimately familiar with the exact limitations that that Mongo's solution might have, but the Postgres foreign data wrappers that MongoDB solution is based on, they have historically offered limited support for pushdowns, and from what we've seen and heard, these limits largely hold true. The Progress Data Direct driver, though, pushes more operations to the MongoDB server than any other connector. We're not limited by foreign data wrappers. The possibilities are really only limited by the aggregation framework in MongoDB itself. To date, I mean, we push down where clauses, select lists, aggregates, group bys, having clauses, order bys, limits, and offsets, and we're continuing to enhance that set of operations as we move forward.
Okay, thank you, Phil. All right, so we have another question here. Do you have plans to add writing capability to the MongoDB drivers?
We actually have limited write support available today. So for simple fields, you can insert, you can write. More complex types are something left for the future.
And I would add this is Brody, by the way. The majority of the feedback we've gotten has been around desire for read access, and certainly we've implemented the limited set of functionality we have based on some feedback we've gotten, and we're always interested in better understanding people's use cases and needs. So certainly, if you have the need to write to MongoDB that we are unable to handle, please let us know.
All right. All right. So what is the depth of normalization supported by the MongoDB connectors?
The Progress Data Direct connector doesn't really impose a depth of normalization that we're limited by. So we should be able to handle everything. Anecdotally, we've had customers that have gone up to maybe 10 levels deep or so.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I guess we can't speak for the MongoDB BI connector, but Jason, if you're on, you can certainly type in the answer if you want. But we'll continue the next question. So an interesting question. It's kind of maybe more from MongoDB, but what industries have we seen MongoDB adoption within, and for what purpose? So That's an interesting question. We walked through some of the use cases we've seen. There's a public case study with like you saw what TIBCO Jaspersoft's doing. But for as far as industries, we've seen it everywhere. We've seen it across financial services, a lot of reporting and analytics going on with those verticals. We've seen it in life sciences, pharmaceuticals. We've seen it even in the government. So I guess it's not. I think we've seen every industry adopt MongoDB in some way for application development, or it comes embed in some other type of application, or maybe they have some platform that's built on Mongo, and those purposes run the gamut. So I guess the question probably is which industry doesn't adopt. And I don't really know if I've seen one. Certainly, there's a reason it's the fourth most popular database out there. So let me come on to the next question. All right, so modeling rules for MongoDB entities and associations between entities and extending those entities from Corticon to MongoDB. So Corticon is a business rules management system, and it has JDBC connectors. So with that in place, and we do have that MongoDB JDBC connector, so it should be able to connect to that data. I can't speak to specific capabilities through the connection today, but we can get back on that one as well. And keep going down here. This one looks like it's for Gene. It says currently progressdriver is included in Jaspersoft. Or I guess the question is it included or does it have to be added? You need to buy an add-on for it.
Gotcha. Jaspersoft comes in a couple different flavors. If the question is in reference to the community edition, obviously our free version of the product, then the driver is not part of the install. If you purchase the subscription model, then the driver is part of the install.
Okay, great. All right, next question. Does the Progress driver support other BI tools like Cognos modeling tools? So I can take that one. We do have organizations running Cognos. They run with our ODBC connector, the MongoDB ODBC driver. So you can run that in CQM compatible query mode, and you can build your reports and model your data through like the framework manager, and run your reports as you would any other CQM data source. So tools like Cognos and any of the we've seen folks run business objects. We've seen Cognos. We've seen Microsoft BI Stack. We've seen the whole gamut of BI tools of reporting as well as analytics tools and visualization and all that good stuff. But specific to Cognos, yes, we have seen that use case. It's over ODBC. So let me see what else we have. All right, so it looks like we have time for let's take a couple more questions here. So next question, looks like this one's for you, Gene. Does Jaspersoft connect and support ODBC and or JDBC?
Well, actually, Jaspersoft is a Java-based application, so we really focus on JDBC drivers and not ODBC, and that's why we're using the Progress Data Direct JDBC driver.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, and then another question came in. What other BI tools are using the Progress driver today? So you heard from TIBCO Jaspersoft, and we have over 300 ISVs that embed our technology, but we want to be sensitive and just list public references that are using Mongo. So MicroStrategy is another one that's listed in our solution brief on Mongo's site. And you heard from TIBCO Jaspersoft, and you can probably Google your favorite app name plus Data Direct and find the rest. And then let's see. So next question is from a Progress group. So they're asking what versions of Progress do you connect to MongoDB for analytics? So I guess the question there is, with Progress ecosystem and the OpenEdge ecosystem, these are ODBC and JDBC drivers. So I know that there's Progress has released some analytics tools and things like that, and so anything that can connect through an interface, a SQL interface. There's even an ABL to ODBC bridge if you want to query MongoDB data. So any of the interfaces from the Progress ecosystem can connect to MongoDB. Let's see, and then another question. Actually, this is an interesting one, Gene. So this one's for you, Gene. What kind of test suite does Jaspersoft run on the Progress MongoDB BI Connector?
Sure. So Jaspersoft, when it uses a JDBC driver, there's some specific queries that have to work to pull back the data appropriately, and then we do some work behind the scenes with what's returned. These queries have to work. Just because it's JDBC compliant, the driver doesn't always mean that those queries are going to work. Now, luckily, your driver does, and we can rely on it, and it works well. So that's one of the tests. We have to have these queries work correctly. So we ran those queries through your driver, and it worked well. I'm sure we've also done some load balancing, but really kind of to piggyback on what you said earlier, we heavily rely on the progress team to make a very powerful driver, and we believe you do. So a lot of the testing is done by you, right? And we use your driver, and we know that you can support our needs. So that's kind of really it. If you need any more detail, I can be happy to follow up on that, but maybe that's a good start.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's exactly what we want to hear for the amount of testing we do, that it's less of an impact on you. Thank you. All right, I think that concludes all the questions I've had. So, Cindy?
All right. Well, that does wrap up our webinar for today. Thank you very much to our speakers for joining us, and thanks to all of you for taking your time to join us on this webinar. We look forward to having you on future Data Direct webinars. And again, as you have additional topics, ideas that you would like to see covered in future webinars, I definitely welcome your feedback. We definitely want to be able to provide that to you. All right. Well, thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.